O'Brien.
Chief, this is Bosch. Look, I can't keep a lid on this any longer.
You've got to.
You don't understand. I can't.
No.
Chief.
You don't understand. It's not my decision.
I know that, but...
Well, if you know that, then you know there's nothing I can do about it. You've got your orders, Bosch. Now carry them out.
Okay, right off now.
Hello and welcome. Welcome and hello. This is Wait, You Haven't Seen? It's a show where we talk about movies, and specifically, we talk about a movie at least one of us has never seen before. I'm your host, Travis, aka TV's Travis, and this is episode number 237. We are continuing the October takeover of the show by the GORE podcast, and this week we watched C.H.U.D from 1984. Now, of the four of us, I think only one of us had ever seen it before. So we're going to start with the one who had, and that is Faye. How you doing, Faye?
I'm doing all right. Just winding down from the weekend.
And also with us, we have the Wicked Kitten, Monica.
That's me. Hi, I'm Wicked.
It is.
And I'm evil.
Yes, very much so. And finally, we have Dread. How you doing, Dread?
Well, hello. I'm doing well, thank you.
Excellent. All right, so Faye, you had seen this movie before, but the rest of us had not. 1984 film, C.H.U.D, short or an acronym for Cannibalistic Humanoid Underground Dwellers. What is your history with this? When did you see it?
Just a couple of years ago. It's just one of those ones I came across and going, oh yeah, I've been meaning to watch that. Let's watch it now. And watched it.
It was a nice short story. It is one of those movies I'd heard about forever, and you always see the name, and I never just got around to watching it. How about Wicked? How about you? Was this one that you were familiar with and just kind of never got to? Have you been wanting to see it?
I had heard of it. I've known of it for a very long time. I think it falls into that realm of, I think I knew it was kind of like a body horror kind of movie. And so maybe that's why I stayed away from it. But
Okay.
It lived in infamy, basically, especially the second one.
We'll talk about that in a little bit. But Dread, how about you? What was your history with C.H.U.D? How familiar with it are you, or were you?
I'm pretty sure I knew the title from something. Don't ask me where from or what. And seen it, well, a couple of hours ago.
Yep. Yeah, I had heard of this one. Like, I'd seen the box for it at the video store, and I remember hearing about it for whatever reason, and I don't know why I had it in my head. It felt like this was one of those, like, the video nasties of the 1980s, one of those that was banned in a bunch of countries or something for whatever reason. And I think it's because cannibalistic humanoid. And so seeing that word on there made me kind of associate with that. And it's really not. This is a lot closer. It's not quite like a chopping mall campy movie. But it's more along the lines of that than it is something like a Cannibal Holocaust or one of those banned in whatever countries, type movies. Because this is a small budget, but it's not, there's no camp to it at all, which I guess I sort of figured it was either going to be like, I kind of felt like it was going to be like that. I don't know, Wicked, what about you? Because you, having kind of like, just like me, had heard of it. Did you think it was going to fit more into that? You had an idea in your head of it being more body horror?
Yeah, because I knew there was, well, mutiny, mutations and whatnot. And I knew there was some kind of a monster. I didn't know the exact detail of it, but watching it, it reminded me of, and I don't know if, I feel like Faye has probably watched it, but Street Trash. Has anyone seen that movie? It's like
I have not.
It's like another. It's literally another body horror movie to do with homeless people,
Mm.
and something that happens in a very similar way. It's just very different and very gross. But it felt just like that, but with the whole, Daniel Stern, John Hurd thing.
Yeah, and we'll get to the cast here in a second, but Faye, when you saw this for the first time a couple of years ago, what was kind of your idea going in? Did you think of it as it was going to be maybe either campier or on the other side kind of more intense than it was, or did you just kind of go in completely blind?
I went in completely blind, but I was hoping it would be more campy because it was in the 80s.
Yeah,
But
and with a name like Chud, it feels like it should fall into line with like Toxic Avenger and that kind of camp
yeah,
factor, which I sort of expected more of, and we don't get that. Like, I guess the sequel leans much more heavily in that direction, but the sequel also has basically nothing to do with this movie. It's just called Chud 2 Bud the Chud, and they're zombies. They're not even mutants. So I don't even know where to go with that. There's no actor crossover. There's nobody involved in the sequel that was involved in making this. They just had the name, I guess. Um, but yeah, with a name like
No.
Chud, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say that the description for the second movie sounded a lot better than what I watched in the first movie. Like, camp factor up to like,
Yeah, that's the thing I think with this movie for me. I didn't hate this at all. But there was a quote that I read that cracked me up, and it was in issue 32 of Fangoria. The producer, Andrew Bonham, referred to this film as, quote, an expensive looking film and an expensive concept. It's a high quality kind of picture. And I'm reading that quote and I'm just thinking to myself, that is a producer really trying hard to sell his movie, because this is none of those things. Like, it doesn't look expensive, and the concept is not that expensive really when you think about it.
it's highbrow, but not expensive.
It wants to be highbrow though. That's the thing.
Yes.
Like the movie's trying to be a really, it feels like it's trying to be a really scary cautionary tale, like, because this is the 80s, and the big thing in the 80s was like toxic waste, right, and environmental issues. That's why you get Toxic Avenger. The Stuff was an 80s movie that had that same thing going on. We hadn't quite gotten to like having Captain Planet the cartoon yet, but we were moving in that direction. And so
No, that was 90s.
but like the 80s had a lot of this, especially in cities, because if I remember right, the Niagara Falls thing was right around this time. It was like 82, 83, I think, where they found a bunch of toxic waste had been dumped under a city near Niagara Falls, New York. So like it was a big thing at the time. And I feel like this movie wanted to sort of be that kind of commentary on that, and do a social commentary wrapped up in a horror film and be like a legit horror film. But then they named it Chud, which nobody's going to take seriously at all. And it sort of felt like it didn't have a budget to really go hard with like being super serious. I feel like this would have been served better if they had put a little more humor into it, especially when they decided late in the game to add the monster suits, because those were not those were kind of done like, they don't look particularly spectacular. They're not terrible by any stretch, but they look a little bit rushed.
I've seen much worse.
yeah.
Yeah,
No, like,
I've seen worse.
Yeah, some of that stuff was like, okay, they did a lot of that didn't show you anything, so that, they didn't have to show you anything bad. So a lot of stuff happened off screen.
Which can work, as we've discussed. The four of us have discussed that a lot before. That can work a lot, but
it can, but it really didn't. Not enough. I'm not saying it's a bad movie. It wasn't a bad movie.
No, but I also feel like, okay, so the cast of this movie is actually a lot better than I was anticipating it being, given that I knew nothing about it going into it. And you see, like, John Hurt as George Cooper. I love John Hurt. John Hurt was great. whether it was as Peter McAllister in Home Alone or a bunch of other things that he's done. He's always good. Here, he didn't feel like he fit this movie, if that makes any sense. Like, it felt like you had a really good stage actor in this movie that should have been full of cheese in the mid 80s, something a lot closer to like a chopping mall, right? Go lean a little bit more in that direction. But they wanted it to be serious, so they cast John Hurd, and he's not bad at all, but he just doesn't feel like he fits in the movie.
Well,
I think
he
also
didn't fit his shirt either.
Yeah.
I think too, I have some issues with like the character itself just being in the movie. George felt like he didn't need to be there. Like, you could have taken that character out of the movie and reworked parts of him into another character and you'd have been fine. But he just, I don't know. It was strange. I'll kind of get to what I mean on that after we talk a little bit more about some of the cast members. Because the other one, Daniel Stern, he felt like he understood the assignment for this movie.
Yeah.
And he was having fun as AJ
Perfect.
the Reverend Shepherd, which is a great name. That's a great character name. And he's running a soup kitchen, and he just looks, like every shirt he has is covered in sweat stains, and he's like greasy, and there's just this whole movie had this layer of film over it. Like, everything feels like it's just like you don't want to touch it because you're just going to have to go wash your hands immediately, which is sort of a thing they were doing with New York at this time. Like 70s and 80s New York always seemed to have that greasy film over it. Everything's dirty. Everyone looks like they just got done rebuilding a car engine, and their hands are covered in grease and dirt.
They didn't?
Some of them did.
Well,
maybe.
everyone was like homeless and lived underground and stuff. It was it was this, the movie felt like something like trying to teach you that thing, like, oh, this is what happens when the government doesn't care. These are the people affected, the homeless people.
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, in that way, it could have been a very serious movie. But then there's like the added horror elements. I don't know. It was just slightly.
I think
It was a little bit.
it's
Like,
because
it wasn't scary enough. It wasn't campy enough.
Yeah, I think that's the problem. Is it landed somewhere in the middle, right? Christopher Curry is Captain Bosch. I don't recognize him from much else. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that I can think of him in. But he was fine. I didn't have a problem with him. I feel like between your three kind of main characters in John Hurd, Daniel Stern, and Chris Curry, we sort of could have combined two of them into one and just had two main characters to follow. Because it's only an hour and a half long movie, and it still feels like there's too much to keep track of. Like, well, what's going on with George and his girlfriend, and who's played by Kim Greist. But then
That
you've
was
got
an hour and a half.
Yeah,
I felt like longer. I'm telling
it
you.
it's that pacing because you're bouncing back and forth. Like, George doesn't need to be there. We could figure out some other way to have, because I couldn't figure out his character's point. Like, he was a fashion photographer who decided he was done with fashion photography and wanted to do something more, more real and more important. So he was like trying to do this other sort of photojournalism, I think. But his girlfriend wants to be a model, and they still want to make money and actually live in New York. But we have this whole thing where like he shot photos for some article about the underground people, I guess. But then he needs to shoot more of them. I don't know. I was very confused by just his character in general. But I feel like you could have combined some of the stuff he had with Daniel Stern with the Reverend. Maybe not the photography end of it, but just the knowledge of the underground. Because I kind of liked having that character there. This idea that, you've got somebody who's trying to help him out, and he's running the soup kitchen, and he's the one calling the police being like, I got a dozen of my regulars that just stopped showing up, and it's only the ones that live underground. He's a little bit conspiracy theory, right? He's a little bit tinfoil hat, which I thought was, what I liked was it never went too far in that direction either. He had obvious reason.
Yeah. Yeah, and his conspiracies were right.
Yeah, in this case, his conspiracies weren't theories; they were real. Um,
Yeah, he was my favorite character
oh, by far,
by far.
by far.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah,
When you
no.
get to it, I'll tell you who my favorite character is.
The chief of police is played by Eddie Jones. He's a character actor I've seen in a lot of stuff before. Nothing jumps off the page like as what I could think of him in, but like he was a guy you see in. He usually plays some sort of an authority figure, I feel like. But he was the chief of police. There were a couple of cameos.
Can we just say Chief O'Brien? I'm sorry, I could not think of anything else, but
Chief O'Brien.
I mean, I know, but this is 3 years before Chief O'Brien was on Star Trek.
yeah, I don't care.
Fair. We had a couple of cameos from some people that we recognize. J.C. Quinn, we just watched last week. He was Murph in this. He was the guy at the truck stop who sprays diesel fuel in his eyes. So he's playing a very different character here. And then Frankie Faison also has his. He's just showing up in everything.
That's 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah. For both of them. Then we had a young Sam McMurray was Officer Crespi. He was the one who the bag lady tried to take the gun off of, which was a great scene. But he's another one, character actor you've seen in a lot of stuff. Sam McMurray.
He was on the Tracy Ullman show back in the day.
That's right, he was.
Yeah.
That was a show I didn't get to watch a lot of because it was on, was it HBO or Showtime or one of those cable channels, and I didn't have it.
Lifetime? I don't remember anymore. It was a very long time ago. I wasn't alive then either.
Right, of course not. Did anyone notice Patricia Richardson in the background of the photo shoot? AKA Tim Allen's wife on Home Improvement. She was the one sitting in the red suit. She was sitting down behind where John Hurd was photographing. Like she was part of the set, basically.
I don't know.
I didn't even notice that she was there until I was watching it a second time, going through looking for some audio or anything that I might want to capture and just get one last brush through it. And I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. And then I look at the cast list and I'm like, Patricia Richardson, what do you know? She has no speaking lines.
We did that Christmas Evil movie on GORE, and she was in that, and I barely recognized her in that movie in the earlier 80s.
Yeah. The opening of the movie with the woman walking down the street. So it's a fun way to open a movie, but it's a movie opening because there's no way there would ever be a street that empty in New York City, like ever.
Also,
yeah.
Very clean street.
Mm-hmm.
Yet the next morning, apparently, it's dirty as hell.
Yeah.
Don't know what happened in between.
That's when all the people came out. Was after she got attacked. She was played by Laurie Matos, who her character was Captain Bosch's wife, but she actually is married to Daniel Stern. It was Daniel Stern's wife who played the character.
So he let her die.
He did.
Yeah. I mean, at least this movie gave you a reason why there's one shoe by the sewers.
Yeah, that's true. Now we know. If you're ever walking by a manhole cover and there's one shoe there, the CH.U.D's got him.
Thanks for the nightmares.
Also, we did get a cameo from a young John Goodman.
Yay, my favorite character.
Actually, it was John Goodman and Jay Thomas, who another character actor you've seen in things. This was Jay Thomas's film debut, and young John Goodman, and they're just there to be dopey cops coming into a diner hitting on the waitress before it gets attacked.
All hell breaks loose.
Yeah, but I thought that was cool.
Could have been a love story.
It could have been. He could have dated the waitress. But yeah, I thought that was cool. I didn't realize he was in it until I didn't realize it until he showed up on screen. Like, John Goodman? Okay.
Yeah. when I was rewatching it recently and we got to that scene, I went, I know that voice.
He's so
Dan?
young.
Certain actors just have a presence about them early on, and Goodman is one of those. Like, you see him here and you immediately know this guy's going to have a career. Whether or not you think it's going to be as good a career as he did end up having, he's got a presence about him that you just want to see him on screen more. So that was cool to see.
Like, dude is as old as he is now. He's on 2 shows.
Yeah.
Well, technically 1 show now, but because the Connors just got canceled. But that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, he's been doing it for a long time, and he's still got it. He's great. So it was cool to see him just with all that hair too. He had a big mop of hair. But yeah, like it's there's people in this. Kim Greist, who plays Lauren. I know her from Brazil. She plays the love interest to the character Sam in Brazil. So that's about the only thing I ever think of her in. So seeing her in this with that very 80s hair that she had, that kind of wavy, crimpy hair,
It's the 80s.
It was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of the music in this? Start with Wicked.
It was reminiscent of something long ago forgotten and slightly irritating, I guess.
Because there were parts of it, like, it felt very of the decade, right? It felt like 80s music. It's very synth heavy. I actually like the music in this, but I think it's because it somewhat reminds me of like kind of John Carpenter type music. It feels like it's not John Carpenter. It's not as good as a John Carpenter score to me, but it feels like it's somebody kind of emulating that idea and doing real synth heavy with stuff. I kind of enjoyed it. No one else?
I don't even remember the music, and I just watched it a couple of days ago.
All right, that's fair.
I mean, that intro sound kept reminding me of some TV show intro, and I can't remember which one.
We couldn't
I keep
get
thinking Baywatch, but I might be
Okay.
wrong.
All right. So it's interesting you say that. I'm going to give you a name, and you tell me what you think. Top Gun. It reminded me of the very beginnings of the music that plays at the beginning of Top Gun. Like they sampled a second of that and then used it. That's what it was reminding me of when I was watching it.
But this is before Top Gun, right?
It was right about the same time. Top Gun was like 85. So
I thought that was 86.
85, 86.
This was 84.
So it's close. And I'm not saying they did sample Top Gun. I said it just felt like they did. But like,
they stole Chief O'Brien, so time doesn't matter in this movie.
That's true. You can just kind of go with whatever you want.
Chief O'Brien.
I liked the overall. Again, it's not a bad movie. It just feels like they should have picked a direction. Like if they'd had the budget to make the monsters look scarier, I think it could have been a very effective, scary, like truly creepy, scary movie. But they didn't have that budget, so they really needed to lean into more of the silliness of like the underground, goofy looking monster that they ended up with.
I give you my example here is that it is it reminded me of Extro, but if Extro had like turned the dial down a lot instead of going like full blast with the bananasness of it. Because it was like kind of like the same thing. Like both creatures were creepy looking, weird, and that kind of thing. But this was just more like a serious movie.
That's a pretty good comparison, actually, because I think Extra was trying to be a fairly serious movie. It didn't necessarily want to be campy, at least the first one.
Yeah, but they were doing drugs, remember? Like,
that's true. There were copious amounts of drugs done. But I do feel like, because the director of this was a man named Douglas Cheek. And he has directed exactly nothing since this. This is like the only movie he ever directed. He was an editor.
Is he still
And
alive?
his last credit I can see is he edited a movie called Claustrophobia in 2011. So if he is, he's retired.
Or he's abiding his time.
Yeah, he's waiting. But as far as a director goes, he had a TV series called Vegetable Soup. He did an episode of in 1975. He directed this movie, and he directed a documentary TV movie called Empires: Peter and Paul and the Christian Revolution. And that's it. Those are his
Watch that.
Those are his directorial credits. So, and the writer of this too was Parnell Hall, who has also not written anything since this movie came out. So it's kind of telling a little bit. He wrote C.H.U.D, and he was Judson. I don't even remember that character. Must have been one of the homeless people, maybe.
I don't remember.
I don't even remember a name of Judson. And then he was in a movie the next year as an actor, but that's it. Those are his only credits on IMDb, are those two movies. So when you have a writer and a director who neither of which have worked basically since then in that capacity, it's not a great sign that your movie is well taken care of. And it's kind of surprising that it looks as good as it does in some ways. But that's where I think that tone issue is. Like, they didn't, because like Daniel Stern, while he wasn't quite like full bore crazy Daniel Stern yet, he was still early in his career. He could have really played that up, I think, a lot more. I do think you could have gone like cheesier, campier with like the over the top villain, because the bad guy, the Mr. is it Wilson or whatever, the leader of the big corporate bad guy, like, he's just straight up, I'm a bad guy and I'm going to do whatever, because they find out, that's the thing, right? That's the big twist, is you find out that the Chuds aren't even the real menace. The real menace was the fact that they were disposing of nuclear or of toxic waste in the sewers of New York, and
It was
this was
the
all a
government.
cover up. Yeah, and now we're in the middle of a cover up of all of it. It's like, okay, I mean, that could make for an interesting and intriguing movie, or you can go full camp on it. Go ahead. Sorry.
I said the dude with the Hitler mustache, or the almost near to that. He was the mayor from Jaws.
Yeah, yeah, he kind of was. You're not wrong.
He absolutely was.
And
that mustache needed to be shaved. I'm sorry.
Yes.
There
Also,
were
this
a lot
was
of mustaches to be
yes.
shaved in this movie.
This was a movie of mustaches of epic proportions.
It was
ranging in
84,
size.
right? The mustache was pretty big back then. Like, it was a popular thing, kind of like it is now. Actually,
Yeah,
I'm noticing a lot more of those. It's annoying.
But
Just
still,
ask Beckham.
that
Right.
one guy with the mustache.
Oh no, that one was
Wow.
bad. That was really bad.
There was like, what was it? Who was it that had the, like, you said, Dred, you said something about the one dude having the bigger mustache, so you know he's the boss.
Yes.
Was
The
that
higher in the rank you
Was that
go,
the captain?
I think the
Something like
real
that.
boss was the guy when they found his wife's body.
Yes.
That guy had a mustache. Yeah, that one was like, yeah. I'm
Yosemite
only in this
Sam.
one scene, but hey.
Look at this lip ferret.
Can I just say how awesome that scene was? They just let him go see the body, and then someone randomly is like, oh my god, that's his wife. And then he just realizes it after they say it. It's
Yep.
like,
I know. That felt like a scene that was conceptualized, and they're like, all right, we got to work this in somehow. Like, we made the mold of his, like, we killed his wife, we killed the character at the beginning of the movie, and we made the mold of her head. We got to use it somewhere. Just throw it in here. It's fine. All right. So how about the effects? Faye, I'll start with you. What did you think of, like, the overall kind of both the monster effects and the gore effects? Because there's a few of them in there.
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty typical 80s fair effects for the practical effects. I didn't think they were horrible.
Yeah, Wicked. How about you?
I particularly liked the head that they made with the dude with the headphones. They had to take the headphones off of him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I thought the head looked really real. Maybe it was actually the guy and the neck part was just the makeup.
I'm
But
not
if it
sure.
wasn't, that was the most realistic head I've ever seen. Maybe they actually killed that guy. I'm just saying. It looked good enough.
He was
Like, for real,
dedicated
go
to
back
his
and look at that.
craft.
I mean,
He's
that's
like-
why these people only have one entry in and only one credit. Okay.
Yeah.
If you
Mhm.
died in the movie, you died in real life.
Oh,
Oh
I
dear.
like that.
Dread, how about
That
you?
needs to be
What'd you think of the effects?
I like the effects. Everything they showed looked good enough to me.
Mhm.
The monster even looked good to me. I mean, it was
See,
top, but it looked okay.
yeah.
And that's why it was
They were-
sad that they didn't show more. But you know,
Yeah, they didn't know what toxic waste actually did to people after long contact, so they were guessing. I mean, it did look kind of like Toxie.
A little. Well, they didn't know what that creature was going to look like when they started shooting the movie. Like the early, they didn't come up with, because there was early concept art that they looked a little more animalistic than they do, and then when they started making the movie, it was going to be less of a full mutation like that and more like when he finds, is it Victor, I think, or Vincent, or whatever the guy with
Oh yeah,
the hurt leg was.
yeah.
When he finds him, where his teeth are sharpened a little bit and there's just a little bit of makeup on him, that was going to be what the Chuds were going to look like. But then they decided, no, we need to have something more, and so they did the creature effect with the glowing eyes, which is why, like, I don't mind. I think the design is kind of cool, and it's a fairly unique looking design. I wish they had a little more time, a little more money to develop it, and then it would have, I think, worked better.
that part I was fine with. Like, I'm telling you, it's probably like the first hour of the movie was just kind of, it was kind of and I say this delicately, it was a little bit of a slog until we got to that one pinnacle moment, and then it was more of what I wanted
Mm-hmm.
for more of the movie,
Yeah,
with
and
the Chud.
Yeah, and again, what I'm saying, like, you can cut George and his girlfriend kind of out and give a lot of that stuff to another character and streamline the pacing a little bit and keep things moving, because you would get Captain Bosch and the Reverend would be making some progress, and then suddenly we had to cut back to see what was going on with George, or to see what was going on with Lauren at the apartment where she's getting attacked after taking a shower, and the weird random scene where something's stuck in the drain that she takes a coat hanger at, and then it just sprays blood everywhere for reasons.
It was one of them looking up at her.
But then, was that what it was supposed to be? I did
Yeah.
not really get that at all.
That's
But
the only
then
thing I can think of.
they cut away
Or
from
that she
that.
poked one of them.
Yeah, and then
Yeah,
when it
poked him
comes
in the
back,
eye and it
she's
squirted.
fine. They cut away, they come back, and she's perfectly fine, and there's no blood anywhere anymore. So it was a
Well,
really
she cleaned
weird
the blood.
scene. Oh yeah, she cleaned all the blood.
Yeah, it's all fine now.
No, sure,
We're fine.
Sure. So no, you're not wrong. And the first hour of this is a bit of a slog. Like, it could have, for an hour and a half long movie, it takes way too long to get going.
Yeah.
I don't mind a good slow burn, but you got to have something going on to keep the pacing moving, and this didn't have that.
It's
They
funny
tried.
that the first hour is like that. So you would think the next half hour is better. But one thing I noticed they started doing in this last half hour is repeat sentences.
The
They're
dialogue was
talking to
repeated.
each other, and one person says a thing, and the other just repeats it in a little different word. But he basically just confirms. And they kept doing that for a while. I'm like, Jesus Christ, come on.
Yeah.
Well, pat out the movie.
I mean, sure, they didn't have that last half hour. I also love dumb stuff like bad guy telling his cronies, go seal the manholes, and their way of sealing the manhole cover is just to park a truck on it. Like that doesn't
I mean,
that
it
you can't
worked.
open it, but it doesn't seal it.
Yeah.
But that just I'm like, what is that? Okay. I did appreciate. I will say this, and I had a note about this. I did appreciate the chud that attacked Lauren in the apartment, stretching his neck out so it was much easier for her to cut its head off. I appreciated him doing that. That was
Yeah.
kind
That's
of him.
actually a note that I made as well.
Yeah.
Nice of you.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh.
I'd be like, go ahead and try.
They can continue to change. Okay.
Yeah, they keep mutating.
It's like those.
It's like the Thing.
It's like those guys who insist that you punch them in the stomach as hard as you can. It's
Yeah.
like you got a knife. Show me what you can do. Here, I'll make my neck a little bit longer for you.
There
I
you
can
go.
see you're having trouble swinging there. Let me just. Oh, yeah. A little bit more? Okay. And now I'm going to numb you in the leg.
Yeah,
and
I love the
There's
head.
not going to be anything in the story anymore afterwards.
Nope. Completely ignore all of that. She's not going to turn into a mutant because
Yeah.
she got bit on the ankle.
Is that what was we figured out that biting transfers it as well?
I have no
I mean,
idea.
that's kind of what they were saying with Victor.
That's what
'Cause,
I
like, it
got from
got
that.
a
That's
little
why.
confusing because he was
Yeah.
down there too, so he could have been infected by the radiation and whatnot.
That's why what Travis said about the sequel when they're apparently zombies. That's kind of fitting because that's what I figured here. You get bit by one, you turn into one. So that's
Yeah, that's not all zombies.
Right, but if you've seen the
Well,
stills or
yeah.
seen Bud or Chud 2, they don't even look the same. Like they look like your standard gaunt, pale zombies. They're not mutated at all.
Well, that's dumb.
It is dumb.
I didn't see any of the stills. I just saw because it has the greatest poster of the little Bud the Chud in the back of the truck bed, with a little hand out and little eyes peeking under the little whatever that cover is called that people put in their truck.
Tonneau cover.
Tonneau.
Yeah.
So it's just cute.
I haven't seen that one.
I would love to see more with Chud. That's all I'm saying.
I honestly, I think a remake of this could be worthwhile. I don't need and necessarily want remakes of the classics. We've talked about that a lot, the four of us, with things like Friday the 13th, the Halloween remakes, the remake that we don't talk about because Dredd will get upset if I mention the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street.
They're making
Is that
a
the only
remake?
one?
Nightmare on Elm Street?
But the thing with those, I understand from a business standpoint why studios want to remake them, right? There's a built-in audience. They already know what it is. But this is a movie that actually deserves a good remake. Get somebody who is going to take, because the concept is kind of cool. I like the concept. It's a horror movie version of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, right?
In a way,
TMNT,
yeah.
because that was another thing from the mid 80s with toxic waste in the sewers. It was a big thing, toxic waste. And so take that and run with it in a scarier direction. And I could see either doing a tongue-in-cheek campy remake or going for a full-on hardcore scary remake. It's just with a name like Chud, it's kind of hard to make it super scary and people take it
With
seriously.
a name like Chud,
I
it's got to be
definitely
good.
would prefer a tongue-in-cheek campy
Yes,
remake.
it has to be.
But
Hand
I think you could do that. You could give it doesn't have to have a huge budget, but if you've got enough time to develop the costumes and all of that, I think it could work really, really well. And you get, because this did attain cult classic status. There's a lot of people that do like Chud and talk about it quite a bit. We all heard about it for years before we ever saw it. So it's one of those that could have, you could get filmmakers that really enjoy this material and want to make that. And I think it could be a lot of fun. So this is one of those few times where I'm like, no, I really want a remake of this. Because I'm with you. I like the idea of kind of continuing it on and doing more with this. Because I think it's a cool idea. It just, the execution of it wasn't great.
All right.
Or could have been
Can I
better.
get to my favorite character? 'Cause
Absolutely.
I
Please do.
All right. So, dude in the red shirt. walks up to Daniel Stern, going to the phone, takes the dime away from him, and swallows it.
And eats it.
And then they just stare at each other like they're gonna kiss for like a minute. Like,
Yeah,
who was that guy?
he was
So-
he was one of the ones that was under the take for
Yeah.
the corporate guy, and he was trying to be a big tough man. I'm gonna take out and do anything you want against you.
Yeah.
Uh,
He was also in the deleted scene that I don't know why they cut it, but when he was pooping out the dime and
Travis missed.
with all the little
Ugh.
And
sounds.
you just hear like
No,
a
thanks.
splat and then a ting,
No.
like a
no.
spittoon.
That doesn't
You know what
exist.
he reminded me of? Travis. He reminded me of David Caruso's character from Hudson Hawk. Like, didn't speak,
Yes.
just had that weird face.
Yes. He was.
That's why I liked it.
See, there again, like lean into that. Give us more of that kind of the cover up aspect of things too. There's all that you can explore and have a lot of fun with, and it can be super campy, like because it's like he just hangs up the payphone, grabs the the coin out of it, and just puts it right in his mouth, and I'm like, ugh, you know where that coin has been?
Oh my god. Can you imagine that in this day and age? Like, this is 84, but like now, I wouldn't even I would have to put a glove on before I put my finger in my mouth. Like
I mean,
ugh.
like Daniel Stern's character just held that coin, and he has just this thin sheen of sweat and dirt on him at all times. Like everyone in this movie was sweaty constantly.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
that one cop had like one sweaty armpit.
Mm-hmm.
Only one.
Well, it's New York. I mean,
Which
Yeah,
cop?
only one. It's like how?
Was that
he had
the
deodorant
McMurray?
on one. He only had deodorant
he
for
ran
one,
out.
one underpit. Yep.
He was running late that morning, and thought he got both pits, but he only got the one. So it's just the one. But like that was the thing I noticed with Daniel Stern, just kind of like sweat stains on everything he wore, and
Yep.
it's just everybody was greasy and grimy. So yeah, that coin was nasty, and that dude just put it. And then he basically does that, and then that character also kills the my favorite character in the movie, which was Val, the homeless guy that had been living underground and then wasn't. That Daniel Stern takes the captain over to, and the guy just speaks in like metaphors and quoting scriptures or whatever. That guy,
the Cuckoo Bananas guy.
yes, he was somebody we needed more of because he was fascinating. He just was nuts. Immediately calling them Gog and Magog, and then he's like quoting all this scripture, and he pulls out a giant knife out of nowhere and nearly stabs them in the hand. Like I just love that. That guy was having fun. He was going for it. And
Yeah. Ham.
yes, unfortunately, he gets killed by your favorite character before they're sealed into the underground.
I'm sorry my
Well-
character killed your character, Travis.
Well, it happens, but it made me sad.
Well, my favorite character didn't kill anyone.
No?
It was actually the female cop who mastered eye rolling.
Oh my god, she
He
did.
was
she
the
was
master.
great. Oh, so Officer Sanderson, I think, or something like that. She was amazing.
Yeah.
Ah,
Even
When he
on
walks-
even when she radios him, it sounds like she's rolling her eyes. She's like,
Yep.
"Do you know what that means?" Like, okay.
God, I can hear your eyes rolling from here. He was great, or she was great, rather. The other cop that he talks to in the beginning, for like I thought was going to be somehow more important in the movie, and you just never see him again because he hands him the case, and the guy's like, "But I'm already working on the other one." He's like, "Just call that a missing persons case." He's like, "Well, yeah, but Captain," and he's like, "Just do what you're told." And I thought, thought for some reason he was going to show up again later or be somewhat important. Nope, that's it. He was there for one day.
That's where my
Most of the
bigger
character
mustache
comes from.
wins theory came from. Because
Mm.
he had a smaller mustache, so he had to suck it up.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Only big mustaches now.
that's it. You have to have a bigger mustache. That's the hierarchy. We've established that, and it is now canon. I did capture a couple of clips. There weren't a ton because again, the movie's not super campy, so there's not like a lot of. We don't have a Wanda from Maximum Overdrive in this movie, right? There is nobody going like even Crazy Dude didn't go that far.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of like campy. There was one I didn't get, and it's John Hurd had some quip, I think, when he runs into Daniel Stern, or when Daniel Stern knocks out the bag lady. He says something, and I was like, that's as close as we got to like an '80s quip in the whole movie. But I didn't.
Did you rob my house and harass my son?
But a lot of it's John Hurd that I captured actually, because he was just in the beginning of the movie was just a motor mouth. This is him enjoying being a photographer.
Ooh, what style? What content? Oh, what art? Oh, my God, I love this profession. Tony, give me 2 more stops on that back light.
That's so funny because you just reminded me that in Extra, that dude was also a photographer, and he had that weird line about the sandwich eating, and she couldn't eat her sandwich,
right.
smiling with her feet or whatever.
Yeah,
That's so weird. Huh.
And then I wouldn't have made the connection between this movie and Extra until you mentioned it. But now our main characters are photographers in both. Interesting. I feel like they gave John Hurd a script without any punctuation in it, though, because he had that line, and then he had this one where so right after that, his girlfriend gets up, she puts on a robe, and she's trying to calm him down and be like, look, this is a big deal for me, and we need to make money and all this, and he's all upset because it's a perfume ad. And then he says this, and you tell me this isn't from a script that has no punctuation, because he barely breathes for this.
These people are using your body and draping it with the carcass of some helpless little field mouse to sell some worthless perfume which probably smells like sheep dip. What are you shishing me for? They know it. They made it. They can smell. They know what's in it, and they know what it takes to sell it. Stop it.
Like,
and breathe.
This is like 1940s talk. Hey, see? When they talk like 40 miles an hour.
And that's kind of where I get like the, stage actor coming onto a movie. He's doing this thing. They give him the script and he's just like, all right. And he goes for it. But it's like, dude, breathe somewhere in there. Take a moment, put a pause in there.
Nah. There's nothing there that says to, so I'm not gonna.
I ain't got no periods
like
commas in this
bad
script.
guy. Our bad guy had a similar thing where he had just a line and he didn't know why he was saying it, I think, because he was like, and now we're going to do it my way. Like,
my way.
Don't you mean my way? Like, emphasize the my there, not the way. The my.
Maybe director Cheeks was a Clint Eastwood style director and said we only do one take and that's it.
Oh.
Because I mean, Eastwood is famous for only doing a single take. I don't know if you ever like Matt Damon. I remember seeing an interview with him. Somebody mentioned that, and he was talking about doing the movie Invictus, where Matt Damon is playing a South African character, and he's talking about how hard the South African accent can be to do if you're not familiar with it, because it's like the opposite of how Americans speak English. And he does his first take with Eastwood, and Eastwood's like, "All right, cut, print, check the gate." He goes, You sure, boss? You don't want to do like another take or anything? And Eastwood just leans in and goes, what, you want to waste everyone else's time? You know what? Never mind. No, one take's good. We can move on. Like, maybe that's what we got here. So that's why you get my way instead of my way. We have no notes.
Did you capture my favorite quote?
I don't know yet. This was one that out of context can sound really, really horrible. And it's a horror movie. So without the context, I'll play it, and then obviously we'll know what it is. But this is, here you go.
Why? Because today I'm going to shoot Lauren. Okay? Goodbye.
Yes, we love that one.
Things your photographer can say that no one else can.
Yep.
So the other was that. The creature. I don't remember what I had for creature, so here we go.
On each side of the throne, there are 4 living creatures filled with eyes in front and behind.
That was my favorite character. He was just crazy. just yelling random stuff. Then the last one I got. Okay, all right. You're planning a cover up. Okay, you've been dumping toxic waste in the sewers, right? Now you're covering all that up, and in doing so, you're going to use trucks. And your trucks have a fatal flaw to them. Just listen to this.
Now remember, those trucks are rigged to explode on impact from below, so watch the potholes.
Why? Why would you rig the trucks to explode on impact from below when your problem is below? Your problem is underground.
That is
Hey,
the dumbest
these
thing.
trucks, watch out for the potholes. Now go cover up those potholes.
Yeah, exactly.
Ah.
That was
Okay,
just so we could justify the truck exploding at the end of the movie. That's the only reason you would put that in there.
Can I read you the dialogue of us watching this movie?
Yes, please.
Right.
By
It
all
goes
means,
like
go.
this. They shoot through the glass, hit the guy with the gun, right?
Mhm.
You know, and the car, like, and I'm like, oh, hey, it didn't explode. And then Dredd goes, yet. And then boom. And I laughed so hard.
It's so
It was
just
the funniest thing I've seen.
I heard that line and I'm like, why would you rig the trucks to explode when hit from underneath? What were you thinking?
Boom.
Because the chud would be coming up out of the sewers into the trucks and then explode and die.
Mm.
Boom.
That's the only thing
no-
I can. That is the
That does make sense,
only
actually.
redeeming thing I can give it for that type of
Yeah.
plot.
Okay, so yes,
then-
And that's a stretch.
it is a stretch, and I would give you that, except that they parked the truck so that the wheel was over the manhole cover, thus making it so the manhole cover couldn't move. So the chud's never going to get out of there to get into the truck in the first place. So they kind of negated their own.
Maybe.
Well, it was a backup.
Maybe there's
fail-safe.
like a small plot hole in this movie.
Small plot holes?
I mean, that could
No,
be.
just a tiny one.
Small plot hole.
I could be thinking about it a lot more than they did, which is what I'm thinking maybe happened.
Look, you want to know?
Maybe they just wanted a vehicle to blow up on screen.
Of course, it's the 80s. That's all that happens.
Yeah,
Look,
exactly.
The beginning, so you're watching it, I'm like, it's okay, it's kind of okay, it's kind of a slog. Then it starts to get better, and then we get to the ending, and that's where you lost me again. Because
Yeah.
I couldn't find it. Like a flashlight in the dark. I don't know where I was going.
Well, but again, like the movie didn't know what it wanted to be, and so then we get the scene of the diner getting attacked, and we only see part of that, and then it's the aftermath of it, and so now the public knows because there's this big thing. But then the movie was kind of like, oh man, how are we going to finish this? I don't know. Blow up a truck, brilliant, and that's what they did, and then just fade to black. Like that's all you need.
Yeah.
I think they're
I'm
trying-
sure there's one guy who said like, should we not end the story? And there's one, but we blew up a truck. What more can we do?
Grass?
Right, exactly. What more can you do?
Yeah, I mean, I think they were trying to imply that because of all the gas that was in there built up, that it ignited with the truck, and
Okay.
it blew everything up down below.
Here's my other thing. How does gas stay down there? That's not how underground works. It doesn't see it.
Because they've covered up they covered up all the manholes
they
you
parked
see,
trucks
so
over
gas can't.
Oh, yes.
Seal
Okay.
everything.
That's how you see it.
Now-
Because there's no vents or anything in New York.
Nope,
You're right.
none
I'm
at all.
sorry.
None at
I'm
all.
gonna agree with Faye's thing there, but I'm gonna raise you the question:
Okay.
if the gas exploded the truck even more, and the sewers are all full of gas, why didn't the entire city explode?
Exactly.
Mhm.
Because it was just the right amount of concentration of gas not to do
yeah.
that.
Oh, right. It was only
But-
for that one area, that small area, and
No.
of course we know that's
No,
how that
but
works.
we're supposed to. If there's an explosion in a sewer, we're supposed to see manhole covers fly out into the air.
But they
Yeah.
can't do
That's the
that
law.
because there's vehicles parked on top of them.
But
So
it would explode all the
Should be
vehicles.
more
Yeah.
exploded trucks. We only got one. Those cheap
We were cheated out of more explosions. Is basically what we're getting to here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all of the trucks were rigged to blow from below, so when the gas exploded and pushed up the man cover, it lifted
Yep.
and made the cars explode. Why didn't we get that scene?
You
Well,
know what?
maybe
We're
it
putting it in
happened,
the
but they
remake.
faded to black, and they were like, "Oh, we faded to black. We can't unfade to black."
I'm sorry, I can't figure out where the joke is, but somewhere between rigged to blow from below and through the manhole.
It's in there.
There's a joke.
No, I think we can all agree this is a movie that belongs back in the 80s. It can stay there. I think it doesn't have to but I want a remake of this. I want like, because we're getting a remake of The Toxic Avenger, right? We've seen that trailer. That looks really cool. Why can't we get a remake of C.H.U.D in the same vein?
But Travis, apparently, as Monica told me, this version of the 80s won an actual award at the Brussels Fantasy Expo, whatever it was.
Oh, look at that.
As best fantasy movie.
Yes.
Of
I'm glad
that
you remembered
time.
it. It won Best Fantasy Film at Brussels International Festival of Fantasy Film in 1985. Citation needed. So,
otherwise,
the
Biff.
accurate.
It's the Biff.
The Biff.
Because it's the B-I-F-F-F. It won a Biff.
Can you please tell them what you responded when I told you that, by the way? What was your first response?
I don't know anymore. I plead the fifth.
You don't remember, or you actually plead the fifth?
He remembers.
I plead.
What was it? You remember. Tell us.
He said...
One of
he
you.
said, man, we really don't have taste.
Especially because this movie came out in 1984. I'm pretty sure there are some fantasy movies. And hell, is this even a fantasy movie? Come on now.
Well, horror. Horror
not.
is dark fantasy. It
Yeah.
fits.
Well, 84 had quite a lot of movies.
Wasn't
decent.
Gremlins 1984?
Among others.
Yeah, Gremlins and A Nightmare on Elm Street both came out in 1984.
So I think what we want to see is what else was up against this.
Right. What else was up for a Biff?
I don't know how we figure that
award. I have no idea. I don't think we can find the... it's just the winners. It doesn't have the nominees. I can't find that. But the Brussels International Fantasy Film Festival Award winner, C.H.U.D. I would like to see a modern remake of this. Really lean into the silly nature of C.H.U.D in general, and not.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be a parody. I don't want it to go that far, but I want there to be a camp factor to it, and I think that could be a lot of fun. I think you could really make something cool with this. Whether you set it in New York or not, I don't know. I think New York's kind of...
New York lends itself to that with those sewers and stuff
Yeah.
that we have.
Yeah.
It's just kind of...
It's harder to film
it's
there, but...
big sewers.
Also, can we have C.H.U.D versus Jason?
In the sewers of Manhattan. Yes, thank you.
Perfect.
That's how you bring it back. You do that first. You get the fans excited for it. And then you can make a proper remake.
There you go. I like it.
Cut and print.
Definitely. Well, this was fun, though. I mean, I like to get some different goofy movies. And we've watched things like Chopping Mall. That's the one that comes to mind as like the kind of low budget campy thing that we've done on this show. But I like finding movies like this every once in a while. And sometimes you find sort of a diamond in the rough. This one's a little more rough, a little less diamond. But we did get Daniel Stern, and I do like him. He was fun. Mm-hmm. He saved it for me in a lot of ways. Because he has a look about him, especially in this movie, with the hair and everything too, that is a little campy without him trying to be. So I think that works too.
Love Daniel Stern.
Yeah, he's great. A lot of Home Alone connections in this. Him and John Hurd both in Home Alone.
Yeah.
And
both.
yeah, and then we had,
Well, two.
obviously we mentioned J.C. Fields and Frankie Faison from last week showing up in this movie tonight. So we got a little Stephen King connection going on. A lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But no, this was fun. I had fun watching the movie overall. For as much of a slog as it could be, I think watching it for this to talk about it was fun. I'm glad that I got to see it finally, and I can say yes, I have seen Chud. At some point, I will see Chud 2, Bud the Chud, just to say that I've seen that, because that's a fun title to say. But it sounds like I mean, Wicked, you at least had fun watching the movie, right? Mostly.
Yes. Like, was it worth one? Yes, I wanted to see it. It was a box checker, a check box. My boxes are checked, but yeah. So I don't regret it, and I'll probably end up watching it again because that's what I do to myself. I watch movies like this.
I mean, there are far worse movies out there that are that are unwatchable. This is not unwatchable. Yeah. It's not great.
Remember Valentine? Remember Thanksgiving?
We agreed not to ever talk about that.
No, we didn't.
I'll watch Valentine before I watch Thanksgiving again.
No,
well, yeah, we decided. Yeah, that's definitely true.
That is true.
That is true.
Faye, now that you've seen this a couple of times, what do you think overall?
I mean, it's decent. I mean, again, it'd be nice if there was more camp. It's a movie with a title that, as you've stated multiple times already, it leads into the camp. Let's go for it. Let's get some re-editing done. Let's go. Or a remake with the more campiness. I enjoyed it. I mean, I didn't begrudgingly watch it a second time, so.
That's true. You didn't put up any kind of a fight when it was mentioned that we were going to watch this one. So, I did find this interesting though. Jordan Peele actually had this as an influence on him for making Us.
Yeah.
And
I was going to save that for the next.
he even has it. It's playing on a TV at the beginning of the movie. Us.
You can also see the VHS cassette.
Oh yeah, the cassettes in like the background or something too. So
yep.
I mean, it at least had that level of influence, right? So that's kind of cool. There's a little bit.
Yeah,
there.
That was right there. If you want to talk about a remake, like that is, well, never mind. You haven't seen it, so I'm going to shut up now.
But,
the end.
But yeah, Dredd, how about you? You overall, do you mourn the time you spent watching Chud, or are you at least semi-happy with it?
Ah, that's fine. It was fine. I mean, do I want to rewatch it? No, I'm good.
Yeah, I changed my mind
too.
I think I changed my mind since I said that before. I think I was just trying to be nice to the movie, so it didn't get
so it doesn't get upset with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, of the two movies we've watched this month for this show, Maximum Overdrive and this, I'll watch Maximum Overdrive again before Chud, because because that movie, they understood what they were making there, and I feel like just tonally, Chud just needed to pick a lane and go with it, and it didn't quite, because like we mentioned the makeup effects, and the makeup effects look great, but then there's not enough humor to really play on the name and the kind of silly nature of it.
Also,
really
what they did would. Go ahead.
Really, the only humor we got was with the Reverend.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, what they did in Maximum Overdrive was kill the kid. And here, I was like, "Are they gonna do it? Are we gonna go for like 3 movies that we've watched, well, kind of together in a row?"
But they killed the doggy.
That is also a streak we're on. There's a lot of movies lately.
That was sad. I didn't know. I'm sorry. I wasn't happy about that at all.
I thought it made it.
No, that dog didn't make it, unfortunately. So that's Chud. It's very, very mid 80s, low budget, environmental horror movie, I'm going to call it. But
Yeah.
now next week we're going to have some fun because we're going in basically the completely opposite end of the spectrum. With I mentioned Jordan Peele. We're going to do Jordan Peele with Get Out. We're going to watch that one. I haven't seen it before.
Yay.
I'm watching it for the first time for this show. I think all three of you
Wait,
have.
you haven't seen him?
Yes, that's the
I've
title
seen
of
it
the show.
multiple times.
So,
But
I have
technically, Dredd just watched it not long ago, so he'll be in a similar boat,
okay.
Yes.
a couple months boat.
I do feel like this is going to be kind of a very different movie experience from C.H.U.D. So we'll see what's going
Just
on.
a little.
Yeah.
But that is going to continue our month of gore takeover on Wait You Haven't Seen. It's a whole lot of fun. Monica, let people know where they can find the Gore podcast and listen to us, the four of us, talk about horror movies even more.
Well, first of all, we have a lovely website, which I keep forgetting to mention, created by Bumby, and that's gorepodcast.com, where you can listen to the show, find links, find out what episodes we've done, and just find everything out about us. But you can also follow us on Twitter and Blue Sky at Gore Podcast, and search for the show, Gore, on your podcatcher of choice.
Excellent. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. We have a good time with that. Twice a month we put new episodes out. And what was our most?
I like to say bi-monthly.
Yeah, bi-monthly.
Although technically sometimes it comes out 3 times a month.
It does depend on the month. It does depend.
Every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks.
But every 2 weeks we put out a new episode, and it's a whole lot of fun. So if you like our conversations here, there's a little more structure over there. We do have our list of the 13 tropes, our favorite tropes and things in horror movies. There would have been a few of them in here, I think.
Oh,
But
I probably should have pointed some stuff out. There was no cat. There was no Volkswagen.
no,
There was
there
lots
was
of
a
stupid stuff.
surprisingly small amount of vehicles for it being New York.
We don't have cars there. What are you talking about?
It was a lot of empty
Just-
streets, is what I'm saying.
Just trucks rigged to blow from below.
Yeah.
And in the one scene, they had a lot of cabs, but I think it was the same cab just doing circles.
Probably.
But
And a-
Technically,
and I-
your favorite character was like Crazy Ralph-ish.
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, yeah,
Very, like,
definitely.
Doomsayer-y.
Hmm.
a lot of police cars.
That's true. Yeah. But yeah, if you enjoy this show, I do record it live on Sunday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern time, right here, twitch.tv/TV's Travis. And it comes out as a podcast every Wednesday. All your favorite podcatchers, including YouTube, is a video podcast. If you want to get it a few days earlier, you can do that by being a patron. There's also access to special levels of my Discord server when you become a patron, including monthly movie nights, which I am about to schedule October movie catch-up night, where I go back through my back catalog and watch movies with my patrons. So definitely, if you want to do that, you can go to patreon.com/WYHS. You can also find the links for all of that at tvstravis.com, another wonderful website made by Bombats, because he's just the best. So until next week, we're coming back with Get Out. I can't wait. It's been one that I've been wanting to see for quite a while. So I'm glad I'm finally getting a chance to see it and talk with the three of you about it. So that we're coming back for that. But for Wicked, for Dread, and for Faye, I am Travis, and I'd like to say to enjoy your movies and be excellent to each other. This has been Wait You Haven't Seen.
You go by the name of being alive, and you are dead.